Sometimes you'll hear people describe music they don't like as formulaic, like it's predictable, it's boring. But sometimes formulas can actually help to open us up to the possibilities and help inspire us. There's one particular formula that sounds beautiful. All of that was from one simple formula, a simple formula that we're going to be working on today, a simple formula that's one of the most popular subjects we teach here at Open Studio. It really does help a lot of people open up to some harmonic possibilities. The simple formula is called root, shell, pretty. Say it again, root, shell, pretty. Today's video is sponsored by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for a deeper dive on all of this. I've got lots of stuff over on openstudiojazz.com on root, shell, pretty. Check that out for yourself. There is a PDF for today's session. You're going to want to download that. That's in the description. And, if you're liking the video while you're liking it, go ahead and like it. And if you're liking the channel while you're liking it, go ahead and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Okay, root, shell, pretty is the basic premise of the formula. We need a couple of bits of information to apply the formula. The first is a melody note. In this case, the melody note is a G. And the second is a chord. And in this case, the chord is a C major 7. If we know those two things, we can build a chord underneath the melody that sounds good. And all we do is apply three things. Can you guess what they are? It's the root, it's the shell, or what we're calling the third and the seventh, and it's a pretty note. In this case, it's the ninth, but it could be one of many things. Now, the root is just the root. It's always going to be the root. Maybe it's the 5, but usually it's just the root. The shell is almost always going to be the third and the seventh. You could also call the shell the third or the seventh in conjunction with the root, but for our purposes today, we're going to call the shell the third and the seventh. It could also be the third and the sixth in certain situations. The pretty note could be anything that's not the melody or the shell. It could be the 9th. It could be the 13th. It could be the root. It could be the 5th. It could be the sharp 11th. It could be the flat 9. It could be the sharp 9. It could be a number of different things. It's really up to us and our creativity to make the pretty notes as pretty as we want to make them. So what do we get when you apply this formula to this melody and this chord? Well, in this circumstance, we get that gorgeous voicing. Root, shell, pretty, melody on top. Bam. Let's apply it to some tunes that we love. The first tune we're going to apply this to is the Gershwins, but not for me. A gorgeous tune with a beautiful melody. And I have just the basic chord changes here. I've added one or two little movements that I like, but really this is as standard as it gets. We're just going to start with the root, and then we're going to build up from that. So let's hear how this melody sounds with just the root movement. No frills here. Let's see if we can keep it nice and basic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Interpret the melody a little bit. And on from there. So that's it. That's the basic version of the root plus the melody. Now, there's nothing really groundbreaking here. We're just adding the root movement, and it's a crucial first step that you should not skip. Even if you think you're too good for this, you're not too good for this. Nobody is. This is important groundwork to lay. So let's now add some of the basic, very fundamental elements of the chord that make these chords what they are, the third and the seventh, the shell. Once we have the root established, we can add the third and the seventh of each one of these. If we look at the very first chord, that's exactly what we've done. It could be the third and the seventh, or the seventh and the third. The order doesn't matter, and you might notice that I've split the thirds and sevenths of each one of these chords up between the hands. So there's one note in the left, there's one note in the right on most of them. Here on our very first chord, the melody is A, we have the root, and then we have the seventh E, and the third A. It doesn't matter if we're repeating any notes in this context. Things are going to be moving around, so we want to stick with the basic version where we're just keeping the third and the seventh intact right above the root and below the melody. On the next bar, the G minor 7, right, root 7, 3. On the C7, root 3, 7. You're seeing a pattern here. On the F7, back to root 7, 3, root 7, 3, root 7, 3 on the A minor minor 7, the D7, root 3, 7. See what I'm saying? The G7, that's a dominant chord, so root 7, B natural is the third. Then the C7. Now the C7 is a great case of we always are bending the knee to the melody. The melody here is an F, right, which is the fourth of C7. So we're going to suspend the third up to the fourth, so that what would be root 3, 7, we're going to suspend that E up to the F, and then when we can, we resolve it to the E, which we can in beat 3. Could have done in beat 2, actually. Would have sounded great. But whatever you want to do to suspend that, so make sure that we're staying away from this minor 9 between the harmony and the melody, which is kind of ugly. Nothing wrong with ugly, but it might not be the right time for it. What this also does, that suspended third, is it gives us this movement. So we're going down to the third of C minor 7, E flat, and now we have this chromaticism. Chromaticism is so important for inner voice movement. It really helps to draw the listener's ear in, and it directs them where they're going. In this case, from a C dominant 7 to a C minor 7, and then to the F7. Now that C minor 7 is really just F7, but suspended. But it does, it is crucial to get the root movement how we want it set up before, and then add these thirds and sevenths so we know what we're doing. Let's hear how this sounds with the root and the shell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So notice that I've started to add some rhythm here to the shell. We have what's called the middle hand, right? We've got the root on the outside of the left hand. We've got the melody on the outside of the right hand. In the middle, using both of these hands, the reason why they're split is we can use that middle hand as sort of a third hand. Did you know when you woke up this morning that you had a third hand? Well, you do. And it's your thumb and your first fingers in both your hands. We can actually break that up from the root and the melody and add some rhythms. Let's try it again and listen for that rhythm, sort of delaying some of the resolutions in that middle hand so that we can add some rhythm, some groove, a sense of pulse to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You can even anticipate with that middle hand too. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Let's add some even more beautiful stuff, some pretty notes. So we've got the root, we've got the thirds and the sevenths. Let's add some pretty notes to the equation here. So we've got the root, 7, 3 on the F major 7. We're going to add the 13th, the D. It could be really whatever it is we want it to be, but I think this is a great spread. It gives us some force right here in the middle. On the G minor 7, we're going to add the D natural, the 5th of the chord. On the C7, we're going to move that 5th to the D flat. We're always thinking about where these voices are going. Our ear is begging for chromaticism always. So going from the D to the D flat sounds just beautiful. Then on the F major 7, we're going to go back to the 13 and then resolve it here. We could have gone off that D flat. We could have gone down to a C, but I wanted to even delay that resolution more. Put our C here on the G minor 7, that's the 11. Then the E on the A minor 7, that's the 5th. On the D7, now we have the start of something special. We've got the sharp 9, F natural, right? So D is the root, F sharp is the 3rd, C is the 7, and F natural is the sharp 9. For the G7, E natural, the 13, that's just a chromatic tone down from that F. Then we're going to do a flat 13, that's a chromatic tone down. And then on the C7, sus4, the 9, that's a chromatic tone down, the D natural. And then on the C7, the flat 9, that's a chromatic tone down. And then we're on to our C minor 7. So that whole sequence, that's adding some movement, right? Moving that pretty note around. So the whole thing, that alto line moves down chromatically, and our ear loves it. Now notice here on our C minor 7 to F7, I've added a tritone substitution, a G flat heading to that F7. Just a little movement that I love and that you can always add, just adding a little bit more tension there. On the C minor 7, we've added the 9, the G flat 7, got regular natural 13, the E flat, moving everything down chromatically. Let's hear how this one sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I mean, it's got everything you would want. It's got a strong sense of resolution. We know what the chord changes are doing. We can add rhythm. It's got a feel. It's got swing. It's got groove. It's got everything with just a basic, simple formula. Now, this isn't like the cure-all for everything, but it's a great place to start, especially for beginners or intermediate players. If you're wondering how to build voicings, this is how to do it. Let's try our formula over a slightly more complicated tune. Okay, here we have John Coltrane's Countdown, which is a contrafact of Miles Davis's Tune Up, which is a very simple tune, just a series of 2/5s. It's in the key of B flat here, but the very first 2/5 is in the key of D major. John Coltrane used this as a bit of an etude in order to work on working through keys in major thirds here. So it goes from the key of D major, that E minor 7 is the 2 chord in D major, 5-1 to B flat major, which is a major third down, 5-1 to G flat major, which is a major third from down from that, and then back to D major for resolution. It's a beautiful little exercise kind of a tune, and it's a great way to practice our root shell pretty, because things move pretty fast, and we can work on this formula. So if we just look at the root here, we'll try it nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, and. Okay, it's moving around. You can hear how the root movement, it sounds a little bit unorthodox. It's definitely not in any kind of like solid key. It's moving through the keys. It's going to be a great way to add what's next, which is our shell voicings. Okay, now we have that same melody with the same root movement, but we're adding the thirds and the seventh for each chords. For E minor 7, we've got the third and the seventh, G and D. For the F7, we've got A and E flat. For the B flat major, we've got A and D. For the D flat, we're going to put everything in our left hand because it works out that way. D flat, F, C flat, that's the third and the seventh. G flat major, third and seventh. Our A7, seventh and third, G and C sharp. And then for our D major, we're going to add the third and the seventh, and we're going to move that seventh down to the sixth. A very common thing that happens, especially on major tonics. Let's hear how this sounds. 1, 2, 3, and. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, and. I mean, that's really all you need. This is all you need here. All right, let's add some pretty notes to our equation. Building on what we had before, we've got the root, we've got the thirds and the sevenths, or the seventh and the thirds. And now we're going to add things like ninths, fifths, roots to the mix. Here on our E minor 7, we got the root, 3, 7, 9, F sharp, as in Dorian, as in key of D, which is what we are in here, 2-5 in the key of D. Then for the F7, also the 9, a bit of a crunchy crunch here. Root, 3, 7, 9, right? Root shell pretty, root 3, 7, and then some pretty note. B flat major, root 7, 3, 5, F natural. D flat, we're going to add the 9. G flat, we're going to add the 9. A7. Well, I don't know why that C sharp turned into a D flat, but it did, and we're going to go with it. But we're going to add the flat 13, the F natural. Because it has this C natural on top, which is the sharp 9 of the chord, and it's got the flat 9 here. So it's just screaming for more of those alterations, those altered upper extensions. We're going to add the 9 E natural to the D major. Let's hear how that sounds. 1, 2, 3, and. Isn't that gorgeous? So pretty. It's such a beautiful formula for getting these unbelievable, gorgeous sounds. Really thick, beautiful 9s and 13s and flat 13s and movement. It's so perfect for that. Let's hear how this formula might sound on a more modern tune. So this is Stevie Wonder's Isn't She Lovely? And we're going to jump right to the root shell pretty of things here. You know the tune. Here's the melody. And this is all just root, shell, and pretty. Now for some of the triads, some of the more simple chords like A over B, we're literally just doing an A triad over a B. And for E, we're just doing an E triad with that melody note on the 6. So let's hear how that sounds. beautiful. What I really want to focus on here is the next section of the tune where it goes to the 4 chord. It's a beautiful melody, and I think here the root shell pretty really shines. It goes to the 4, the A major, the melody is the 9, and we have root, 7, 3, and the pretty note will be the 5. We could have done the 13, but I like this 5 from where it's going. G sharp 13, that's a dominant chord with a flat 9. The melody is a flat 9. Here you have root, 7, 3, and then 13. And it gives us this F natural triad, which you can clearly hear on Stevie's version of this. So, isn't that beautiful? There it is. Root shell pretty at its best. It seems simple, and it is simple, but it really can open up a world of possibilities. Like I said, especially for beginner or intermediate players, this simple formula is actually a lot of freedom because it gives you some creativity, but you know it's going to always sound good. And you can use your ears to play with the pretty notes, add some movement, add some chromaticism, add some rhythm to it. It is all good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be back in a few weeks. Until then, happy practicing. Thanks, y'all.